I do not earn a great deal of money, but I take pride in how I present myself. My clothes are always clean and neat. I do not seek attention. I only want to do my work well and go home peacefully. That is all I have ever wanted. My boss, Richard, is 42 years old. He wears expensive suits and carries himself with authority. He rarely smiles, but when he does, it is usually directed at me. I tried not to read into it. I told myself it meant nothing. But then things began to change. Richard started visiting my desk every day. He would ask about my work, but his eyes lingered longer than necessary. It made me uncomfortable, though I said nothing. One afternoon he stood at my desk and said, "Sabrina, you work harder than anyone here. You truly deserve more." I thanked him politely, but something about his words unsettled me. That night, I could not sleep. The following week, Richard called me into his office. My heart was beating fast as I walked down the hallway. I feared I had done something wrong. But when I sat down, he told me he wanted to discuss my salary. Relief washed over me. A raise would change so much in my life. He told me I was one of the best employees, that my work was excellent, and that I deserved to be rewarded. Then he paused and said, "Perhaps we can discuss the details over dinner." I did not know what to say. Dinner with my boss felt wrong, but the promise of a better salary was difficult to refuse. I nodded quietly and left his office feeling confused and uncertain. The restaurant was beautiful, set beside the sea. When I arrived, Richard was already waiting. He was not wearing his office suit. He looked relaxed, softer somehow. "You look beautiful, Sabrina," he said. His words made my face go warm. We talked about work at first, but the conversation slowly shifted. He asked about my dreams and my hobbies. He spoke about himself too, about how lonely he sometimes felt, about how little time he had for things that truly mattered. He said I was different from everyone else. I felt something open inside me, something I had not expected to feel. When he reached across the table and took my hand, I knew it was not appropriate. He was my boss. This was not professional, but I did not pull my hand away. After dinner, Richard asked if I would like to come to his apartment. He said we could talk more there. I felt uncertain, but I said yes. His apartment was quiet and dim. We sat close together on the sofa. He took my hand again, and then he kissed me. I did not stop him. That night, I stayed. In the morning, Richard smiled at me warmly and said, "Don't worry, Sabrina, I will take care of you." I wanted to believe him more than anything. But at the office that day, he did not acknowledge what had happened between us. He spoke only about work, coldly and professionally, as though the night before had never existed. Days passed, then weeks. The salary increase was never mentioned. When I gathered the courage to ask, he simply said, "Be patient. These things take time." Then Richard changed entirely. He stopped coming to my desk. He stopped smiling at me. In meetings, he looked straight through me as if I were invisible. The warmth vanished, and in its place was something that felt like ice. I understood then, with a sickening clarity, that I had been used. He had never cared about me. The dinners, the kind words, the promises, all of it had been a means to an end. I decided I could not stay silent. One afternoon, I knocked on his office door and told him directly that he had promised me a raise and had not delivered. His expression shifted immediately. He stood up from his chair and said, "Sabrina, you must not mix personal matters with work. That is highly unprofessional." I felt the blood rise in my face. I reminded him that he was the one who had invited me to dinner, who had made promises, who had taken my hand. He cut me off. "Enough," he said firmly. "Go back to your desk. This conversation is over." I walked out of his office with tears burning in my eyes and a hollow feeling in my chest. Whispers began spreading through the office. People started talking, glancing at me in hallways, going quiet when I entered a room. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Miss Harper from Human Resources asking me to come in for a meeting. Sitting across from her serious expression, I made a decision. I told her everything, every dinner, every promise, every message he had sent. She listened without interruption. The company launched an investigation. They found his messages. Richard was fired, but justice, it turned out, did not feel like freedom. My colleagues turned against me. They blamed me for Richard losing his position. They called me names I did not deserve. Coming into the office each morning became its own kind of suffering. Then, a few weeks later, a letter arrived. The company was letting me go. They cited the need to protect their reputation. I stood in my apartment, holding that letter, and felt the ground disappear beneath me. I had lost everything, and no one even said goodbye as I walked out for the last time. I sat alone that evening and cried until I had nothing left. I was furious at Richard for what he had done, but I was also furious at myself. Why had I trusted him? Why had I not walked away the moment something felt wrong? I had known. Deep down, I had always known, and still I had stayed. A month of difficult, quiet days followed. I sent my CV to company after company and tried to hold myself together. Finally, I was offered a new position. My new manager, Mr. Terry, was professional and respectful. He spoke only about work. He praised my efforts genuinely and without agenda. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Slowly, I began to rebuild, not just my career, but myself. I had once believed I needed someone else to protect me, to take care of me, to tell me I was worth something. I no longer believed that. I had walked through something painful and come out the other side, with something no one could take from me. The knowledge of my own worth. I had made a mistake, yes, but I had also told the truth when it was hard, and I had survived what came after. That was the most important thing I had ever learned, and I would never forget it.